The heavy wooden doors of St. Mary's Church slammed shut with a finality that echoed through Axel's entire being as his father's truck sped away into the Nebraska night, leaving the 17-year-old boy standing alone on the rain-slicked steps with nothing but a backpack and the crushing weight of his secret. "You're dead to us now," his mother had whispered before turning away, her voice trembling with what Axel now understood was not love but fear of a god, who apparently couldn't tolerate a son who loved other boys. He stood there for what felt like hours, the cold seeping through his thin jacket, his mind replaying the moment his parents had found the letter from his high school crush hidden under his mattress. The shouting, the tears, the Bible verses hurled like weapons, and finally the decision to drive him 40 miles to the only place they believed could fix him or cast him out forever. Father Michael found him at dawn, huddled against the stone wall, eyes swollen from silent crying. "Son, come inside. The Lord doesn't turn anyone away," the priest said gently, but Axel could only shake his head. Inside the rectory, over warm coffee that tasted like ash, he listened as Father Michael spoke of forgiveness and trials of faith, yet every word felt like another chain. Axel had grown up in this small Nebraska town where Sunday services were the heartbeat of life, where his father preached against sin from the pulpit on occasion, and where loving another boy was whispered about only in shame. Now that truth had cost him everything. By midday he had made his choice. "I can't stay here," he told the priest, voice steady despite the storm inside. With a small donation from the church's emergency fund and a bus ticket to Chicago pressed into his hand, Axel walked out into the sunlight, leaving behind the only home he had ever known. The ride was long and lonely, filled with stares from passengers who seemed to sense his brokenness. In Chicago, the city swallowed him whole. Skyscrapers towered like indifferent judges, and the streets buzzed with a life that felt both terrifying and freeing. For the first week he slept in shelters, learning quickly how to guard his few belongings and avoid the wrong crowds. Memories haunted him at night, his sister's confused face as their parents dragged him out, the way his best friend had looked away when the rumors spread at school. He questioned everything, wondering if his feelings were truly the abomination his family claimed. Yet deep down, a quiet defiance grew. He wasn't broken. He was just different, and maybe, just maybe, that difference could one day mean something. By the end of the month he had landed a job washing dishes at a diner near the Loop, earning just enough for a tiny room in a shared apartment with 3 other lost souls. Life was hard, but it was his, and for the first time Axel allowed himself to breathe without the weight of pretending. Months blurred into a rhythm of survival that Axel clung to like a lifeline. The diner job turned into night shifts at a warehouse, and he enrolled in community college classes during the day, studying social work because helping others felt like the only way to make sense of his own pain. Nights were the hardest, when loneliness pressed in and he wondered if his parents ever thought of him. Letters he wrote went unanswered, returned stamped refused. Then one rainy afternoon at the youth shelter where he volunteered for extra hours, a tall volunteer with kind hazel eyes and a gentle Midwest drawl introduced himself. "I'm Declan," the man said, offering a handshake that lingered just a second too long. Declan was 25, a counselor training to work with at-risk teens, and something in his steady gaze made Axel feel seen for the first time since that church door closed. They talked for hours after shifts, sharing stories over cheap coffee. Declan had his own scars, raised in a conservative family in Iowa where silence was safer than truth. "I get it," he said one evening as they walked along the lakefront, wind whipping their jackets. "Pretending eats you alive." Their friendship deepened slowly, built on late-night talks about faith, identity, and the courage it took to simply exist. Axel opened up about the abandonment, the way his father's last words still echoed in his dreams. Declan listened without judgment, sharing his own fears of coming out fully at work. Axel found himself looking forward to every shift, his heart fluttering in ways he hadn't allowed since high school. But doubt lingered. Was he ready for this? Could he trust anyone after his family had chosen God over blood? One night, after a particularly rough shift with a runaway teen who reminded him too much of himself, Axel broke down in the shelter's back room. Declan pulled him into a hug, strong arms offering shelter from the storm inside. "You're not alone anymore," Declan whispered, and in that moment Axel believed it. Yet life tested him further. A letter arrived from his sister, begging him to come home for Christmas. But the postscript revealed it was conditional. Repent and pray the gay away. Axel tore it up, tears stinging, and threw himself into his studies. By year's end, he had earned enough credits to transfer to a 4-year program, all while Declan quietly helped with applications and encouragement. The city no longer felt like exile. It felt like possibility. Axel started dreaming bigger, imagining a future where he could open doors for kids like the one he had been, abandoned and afraid. Declan became his anchor, their bond growing into something deeper than friendship, though neither had named it yet. The internal conflict raged, love warring with the old voices that said he was unworthy. But each day with Declan chipped away at the walls Axel had built. 2 years passed in a whirlwind of growth and quiet victories. Axel graduated with honors, landing his first full-time position as a youth counselor at the very shelter where he had once sought refuge. Declan, now a licensed therapist, volunteered there regularly, their paths crossing daily in the best way. Their relationship had blossomed naturally, starting with shared dinners that stretched into sunrise conversations and evolving into something Axel never thought possible: love without shame. One crisp autumn evening, Declan took him to a quiet rooftop overlooking the city lights. "I love you, Axel," he said simply, no grand speeches, just truth wrapped in vulnerability. Axel kissed him then, the city humming below like a witness to their courage. Yet joy came with shadows. Axel's internalized fears surfaced in arguments over small things, like when Declan suggested they attend a pride event together. "What if someone from back home sees?" Axel snapped, the old church rejection flaring up. Declan understood, holding space for the pain without pushing. Their bond strengthened through those moments, Declan sharing stories of his own clients who struggled with faith and sexuality, reminding Axel that healing wasn't linear. Family pressure mounted unexpectedly when his sister called out of the blue, her voice breaking as she confessed their mother was ill. "He needs you," she pleaded, but Axel hung up, heart torn between duty and self-preservation. Declan was there through the sleepless nights, offering quiet support and helping Axel process the guilt. At work, Axel thrived, guiding a group of teens through their own coming-out stories, his empathy born from lived experience making him invaluable. One boy, barely 16 and kicked out for liking boys, latched onto Axel like a lifeline. "You made it," the kid said one afternoon, and Axel realized in that instant his pain had purpose. Declan watched with pride, their evenings now filled with plans for the future. Maybe a small apartment together, maybe advocacy work. Misunderstandings arose when Declan's conservative colleague questioned their closeness at a staff event, forcing Declan to navigate his own closet at work. Axel felt the sting of secrecy but chose patience, knowing Declan's journey mirrored his own. Their love deepened through shared quiet rituals, cooking meals in Declan's tiny kitchen, walking hand in hand only when safe, and dreaming aloud about a world kinder to boys like them. Axel felt himself changing, the boy left at the church steps becoming a man who could stand tall. Yet he sensed the past wasn't finished with him, a tension building like storm clouds on the horizon. The misunderstanding hit like a freight train on a humid summer night. Axel had confided in a close coworker about Declan's struggles with his family, never imagining the words would travel. When Declan overheard a whispered conversation at a shelter fundraiser, he pulled away, eyes flashing with betrayal. "I trusted you with that," he said, voice low and hurt. Axel tried to explain, but the damage was done, old wounds reopening as Declan distanced himself for weeks. Axel threw himself into work, helping more teens than ever, but the emptiness gnawed at him. Nights alone replayed the church abandonment, now layered with the fear of losing Declan too. Declan, wrestling with his own fears of exposure, retreated into long hours at his private practice, questioning if love with someone so visibly out was worth the risk. A chance encounter with Declan's ex, A man who had outed him years ago in a small town only fueled the doubt. Misunderstandings piled up, texts left unread, plans canceled. Axel confronted him at the shelter one evening, rain pouring outside mirroring the turmoil inside. "I never meant to hurt you," Axel pleaded, voice cracking with the weight of every rejection he had endured. Declan listened, tears mixing with the storm, and slowly they talked through the layers of pain, the way past betrayals colored their present. Reconciliation came in small steps, a shared coffee, a tentative handhold, until one night Declan showed up at Axel's door with flowers and an apology. "I was scared," he admitted, and Axel pulled him inside, their embrace washing away the weeks of silence. The experience taught them both about communication and trust, strengthening their foundation. Axel channeled the lesson into his counseling, creating a support group for couples navigating coming out together. Family drama resurfaced when his father sent a terse email demanding Axel renounce his lifestyle for his mother's sake. The letter arrived on the anniversary of the abandonment, a cruel coincidence that nearly broke him. Declan stayed by his side, reading the words aloud and helping Axel draft a response filled with compassion instead of anger. "I forgive you, but I won't change who I am," Axel wrote, sealing it with a quiet strength he hadn't known he possessed. Work flourished as Axel proposed expanding the shelter's outreach to rural areas like his hometown, facing bored skepticism but pushing forward with Declan's encouragement. Their love matured through these trials, romantic moments stolen in quiet parks where they could be themselves, whispers of forever exchanged under city stars. Yet Axel knew the real test loomed, a crossroads where sacrifice would define everything. Crisis erupted when a desperate teen from St. Mary's Church in Nebraska arrived at the shelter, beaten and homeless after his own family discovered his sexuality. The boy carried a faded photo of Axel from high school, sent by a distant relative who remembered the scandal. "You survived them," the kid whispered, eyes full of hope. Axel recognized the pain instantly, the same church steps, the same condemning words. Funding for the shelter hung in the balance as conservative donors threatened to pull support upon learning of the new case tied to their hometown. Axel faced an impossible choice: turn the boy away to save the program or risk everything to help. He chose the boy, sacrificing personal security by dipping into his own savings and rallying community support. Declan stood beside him, publicly coming out at a press conference to defend the shelter, his voice steady as he shared their story. The decision brought backlash, hateful calls echoing the abandonment years ago, but also an outpouring of donations from unexpected allies. Internal conflict raged as Axel confronted his lingering anger toward his family. When his sister arrived unannounced at the shelter, begging for reconciliation on their mother's deathbed, Axel nearly broke. Declan held him through the night, reminding him that healing didn't require forgetting. "You get to choose your family now," Declan said, and Axel realized the truth in those words. The teen's recovery became Axel's focus, sessions filled with stories that mirrored his own, each breakthrough a small redemption. Misunderstandings with Declan resurfaced briefly when Axel pushed him away in fear of dragging him into the media storm. But Declan refused to leave. "We're in this together," he insisted, their bond tested and proven unbreakable. Axel organized a fundraiser that drew national attention, turning the shelter's crisis into a platform for change. Through it all, he sacrificed sleep, peace, and old illusions of control, emerging stronger. The boy he helped testified at a city hearing, crediting Axel with saving his life, and in that moment Axel understood his journey had come full circle. Yet the ultimate confrontation waited, a phone call from his father that changed everything. The final call came on a quiet Tuesday, his father's voice cracked with age and regret. "Your mother passed," he said simply, then after a long pause, "She asked for you." Axel drove back to Nebraska with Declan at his side, the miles stretching like years of unresolved pain. At the funeral, whispers followed him, old neighbors averting eyes, but Axel stood tall beside the grave, Declan's hand a silent anchor. His father approached afterward, eyes downcast. "I was wrong," he admitted, The words Axel had waited a decade to hear. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall. Axel chose mercy, inviting him to visit the shelter someday. Back in Chicago, the experience fueled Axel to expand his work, partnering with churches open to dialogue and creating programs that bridged faith and identity. The teen from St. Mary's thrived, now mentoring others, proof of the ripple effect. Declan proposed on the same rooftop where he first said "I love you," a simple ring under city lights symbolizing their shared future. Axel accepted, tears of joy replacing old sorrow. Together they saved countless souls, running workshops that reached rural kids like Axel once was, turning rejection into resilience. Years later, standing before a crowd at a national conference, Axel shared his story, voice steady as he described the boy left at the church steps who found his way home in helping others. Declan watched with pride, their love the quiet force behind every victory. The shelter flourished, a beacon for the rejected, and Axel finally felt whole. He had become the savior he once needed, healing not just others but the wounds within. True or false? Forgiving those who abandoned you for who you love makes you stronger, or does it mean they were right all along?